The enemy of freedom has chosen to make this year the decisive one. He is striking out in a desperate and a vicious effort to try to shape the final outcome to his purposes.
The Communists had launched a massive New Year's offensive late in January. Martial law was declared by South Vietnamese President Thieu. For their endeavors, the Viet Cong paid heavily in men and materiel. But the destruction in South Vietnam was widespread. The situation caused grave concern in Washington. Yet through it all, during the next 29 days, the President would re-emphasize America's determination to stand fast in Southeast Asia and seek a peace with honor. The month began for President Johnson at the annual presidential prayer breakfast, February 1st.
What we pray for with all of our hearts is an end to war and to tyranny. We're fighting now, as we fought 25 years ago, to prevent any further expansion of totalitarian coercion over the souls of men. And we do all of this with a very deep sense of humility, recognizing our own fallibilities and our own errors, but with an equally strong belief that the cause of humanity cannot be permitted to lose by default.
Later in the day, the President conferred the Medal of Honor on Air Force Major Merlyn Dethlefsen.
This is an afternoon when it's good to stand beside a man in uniform. He is a brave man, come to claim the honor that his courage has earned. He is also a spokesman for the courage of thousands like him that are protecting you and serving us in Vietnam at this hour. And these same men are matching courage with a careful and with a very precise restraint. They are the bravest and they are the best of the men that we can produce. And none, sir, will do better service to their courage or do better service to our cause of liberty, our cause of freedom, our cause of compassion and understanding. None will do better service to that cause than you, sir.
Major Dethlefsen was given the nation's highest honor for neutralizing North Vietnamese missile and anti-aircraft sites after taking extensive damage on his own plane. As reports of the disruptions caused by the Tet Offensive continued to come in, the President began a series of meetings with top-level advisors to determine precisely what the American response should be. There was a growing fear that the North Vietnamese would mount a full-scale attack on the Marine outpost at Quai Son to bring a swift victory in the fashion of Dien Bien Phu. This concern increased when on February 7th, the advanced base at Long Vây was overrun. Members of the Joint Chiefs of Staff assured the President that the American position at Quai Son could be held against assault. The pacification program had been severely curtailed due to the Tet Offensive. Secretary McNamara, in voicing the intelligence data of field commanders, stated that a second wave of attacks on the weakened cities looked imminent. Additionally, there was the situation with the captured intelligence ship Pueblo and its crew. Due to North Korea's belligerent stance, talks at Panmunjom aimed at an equitable solution of the problem had not as yet achieved their objective. In order to bolster American defenses and regain some of the battle initiative, the President ordered an emergency step-up of reinforcements. At Fort Bragg, North Carolina, El Toro Marine Air Station, California, and later on board the carrier Constellation in San Diego Harbor, the President, with a saddened heart, sent more troops to the defense of freedom.
It is never easy for men to leave. It is never easy to ask men to leave home and happiness for duty far, far away. But the duties of freedom have never been easy. For your nation, for all of its people, those duties may become more demanding. The trials may become more difficult. The tests more challenging before we or the world shall know again that peace on this planet is once more secure. You, each of you, have a great role to play in this struggle. I believe, I know that you will serve the cause of freedom just as your forefathers served it. You will serve it with bravery. You will serve it with skill. You will serve it with devotion.
Before returning home, Mr. Johnson made a stopover visit to former President Eisenhower at his home in Palm Desert, California. The general received a full briefing on the Vietnam situation. A broader discussion of world events took place when British Prime Minister Harold Wilson officially called on the President February 8th.
Our two nations are as close as ever. Our two peoples are as determined as ever to master the trials of the moment and to move on to the triumphs of the future. And that is what the Prime Minister and I have spent the day talking about. We have ranged around the world, reviewing our large responsibilities, drawing on our experiences, exchanging insights, giving and getting much of value.
Though the major concern of the President was centered on foreign affairs, he nevertheless found ample energy for the critical domestic issues facing the nation in the years ahead. During the month of February, the President sent 14 special messages to Congress geared toward improving life in the United States in everything from the arts to law enforcement, from education to economics. He signed into law the Commodity Exchange Act Amendments Bill and the Savings and Loan Holding Company Amendments of 1967. In the voluminous special messages, the President sought laws that would protect the owner from home improvement frauds and the consumer from deceptive merchandising practices. He asked for a beefed-up anti-riot law, stricter firearms and gambling control legislation, and a new and more powerful Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs to safeguard the health and welfare of all Americans. For the student, the President requested additional financial aid. For the policeman, better training. For the farmer, strengthened bargaining power. For urban centers, 6 million low and middle income housing units over the next decade. The President also found time to honor the contributions of dedicated and courageous Americans from many different walks of life. For the United States mission at the UN, the President unveiled a bust of a devoted statesman, Adlai Stevenson. To a brave woman, actress Patricia Neal, he presented the Heart of the Year Award. To 10 outstanding public officials, the Arthur S. Fleming Awards for Excellence in Government. To a group of distinguished pioneers, the country's highest recognition in scientific fields, the Medal of Science Awards. To the winners of the White House Photographers Annual Contest, some well-earned praise. To the United Cerebral Palsy Association's national poster child, Kenny Cunningham, an unforgettable moment. A domestic event that took full advantage of the midwinter meeting of the National Governors Conference was a fashion show and luncheon presented by the First Lady to the Governor's wives. Part of a Discover America First campaign, the luncheon's theme focused attention on America's scenic beauty and national heritage. It was the first such fashion show in White House history. The models prepared themselves in the elegant Blue Room for the performance in the State Dining Room.
Gathered in this room are some of the most accomplished tour guides in the country, the governor's wives. I know because many of them have helped me discover their own states, from the white church steeples and covered bridges of New England to the wide open spaces of our American West.
That evening, the White House played host to the governors and their wives. Nothing could have been more appropriate for a gathering of office holders in an election year than the after-dinner performance given in the East Room by the New York City Light Opera Company. Selections from the Broadway musical Fiorello.
With what? With the people of your own district. Why do you think the men and women of the 14th like those take-rate tin horns that they've had representing them in Congress for years?
And you think...
You give me the nomination, and I'll give you a congressman.
Why not?
Congratulations, Mr. Marino. You've got yourself a wonderful candidate.
All right, now you call me tomorrow, and I'll lay out all the plans for the campaign. In the meantime, I've got to take care of that holiday show that's going to help get me elected. Come on, Marie, come on. Time is over.
Politics and poker, politics and poker, makes the average guy a heavy smoker. Let's nominate and give our regard, and watch while he learns that in poker and politics, brother, you've got to have that slippery, haphazardous commodity. You've got to have the cards.
chilly February 12th, the President took an opportunity to recall the perseverance of another president who had faced hardship and travail from many quarters.
Across the world, whenever men have sought to breathe free and to stand tall, they have looked to Lincoln. We are sometimes forced by an adversary to back our beliefs with steel, just as Lincoln did. And we must stick it out, just as Lincoln did. For we live in a time that Lincoln would have well understood. He heard the charges that the war was long and wrong. He saw Americans die, 600,000 of them, and he brooded. He saw dissent and riot and rebellion. He saw hunger and poverty, sad but steady, always convinced of his cause. Lincoln stuck it out, sad but steady. So will we.
America's long-standing ties with her ally South Korea were strengthened when, on February 15th, Special Presidential Troubleshooter Cyrus Vance returned from successful diplomatic negotiations with President Park Chung-hee. South Korea had expressed concern over growing infiltration from the north and aspects of the Pueblo incident. Vance stressed the importance America places on the maintenance of a strong South Korea and reaffirmed the United States' commitments to that part of the world. Four days later, the UN Secretary General arrived to discuss the prospects of peace in Southeast Asia. In the opinion of U Thant, fresh from a tour of major capitals around the world, a settlement might result if certain demands from both sides could be mediated. The President emphasized that the San Antonio formula for mutual de-escalation of the conflict still remained the basis of American peace conditions, and he outlined to the Secretary General his hopes for the future.
They are the simplest things to describe, but they are the hardest to achieve. A peace rooted in the good, firm earth of freedom. A world respectful of law, given to justice, hostile only to force. A life without the torment of hunger and ignorance and disease. A higher standard of living and more opportunity for all.
Although he is constantly in touch with the nation's business from the Texas White House, the Johnson Ranch allows the President some precious moments of sheltered contemplation and privacy. While in Texas on this particular trip, the President made two official appearances. In Dallas, at a convention of the National Rural Electric Cooperative Association, Mr. Johnson saluted the continuing progress resulting from rural electrification, progress in which the President played a major role.
The REA was founded a third of a century ago to try to halt the drain of life and wealth from the countryside. Men and women rallied to the REA banner from all over America. And they did it for the same reason, to try to make life better in the rural areas. Not long ago, it was only 5% of America's farms had electricity. Today, only 5% don't have it. And I share your great pride in that progress, and I thank you for it. Because all along, your struggles have been my struggles. And so long as I am your president, I will do all in my power to work with you, to help you, to encourage you.
Later that evening, Mr. Johnson attended a birthday dinner in Austin, honoring an old friend, Governor John Connally. The next day, the President returned to Washington and top-level meetings on the continuing crisis in Vietnam. The most pressing matter to be settled involved the number of troop reinforcements General Westmoreland would need to maintain a fighting superiority. General Wheeler, just back from a fact-finding mission in Vietnam, laid the matter squarely before the National Security Council. But before finalizing a decision, the President ordered a further review of the situation. In the final days of the month, the President participated in 2 ceremonies honoring Defense Secretary Robert McNamara, who was moving from the Pentagon to the World Bank.
The General Services Administration does not list him among our official assets. But he is one of America's most valuable public properties. For many long and quite demanding years, Bob McNamara has guided the defense establishment. He has helped to give America the most efficient military strength in its history. And now he's going to try to build the kind of world that alone can justify that strength. America is grateful for what he has done, and I speak for all of them this morning. And more important, for what he is about to do. May your selfless service spent in defending freedom bring even greater rewards in the larger work that you now undertake to promote freedom throughout all the world. Signed, Lyndon B. Johnson, the President of the United States.
Secretary McNamara received the Medal of Freedom, the nation's highest civilian award. In an emotion-charged moment, the Secretary faced a deeply moved audience.
Mr. President, I cannot find words to express what lies in my heart today. And I think I'd better respond on another occasion.
With the leave-taking of Secretary McNamara, the month drew to a close. For President Johnson, it had been a time of testing and a time of decision, a period when he exhibited the resolve of his nation.
So, we have taken our stand. The will of this generation of Americans will never be found wanting abroad or at home.